Hi everybody, it's June with Make and Do with June. Let's do something really fun today. We are going to color face masks. Now these are iron-ons from Jane F. Hankins, and I want to show you how easy, how quick, and how fun it is to color these. Okay, today I'm going to be using Arteza markers and these Artist Loft alcohol-based markers. I've been hunting high and low for pastel markers for skin tones, and unless you're orange, I cannot find a color that will work, but alcohol markers will work. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my greens and using the Arteza markers, and I always test mine on a piece of paper, because the caps never ever match what is in the marker. So as you can see, that one I decided was not going to be a green I wanted to use, and the last one was a little dark. So I'm going to use the three that I just pointed at, and I always start with the lightest one. So I'm going to fill in all of the leaves, and I'm going to speed it up here because it is kind of a lengthy process. You'll notice that I hold the fabric taut with my fingers, and that just makes it easier to color with the markers. This is a knit fabric, so it stretches a little bit, and just holding it that way helps to be able to color more evenly. These Arteza markers are double tipped, so one tip is a little bit wider and one tip is finer. And you'll see that occasionally I switch around the tips just so that I can color in more space or fit the marker into more detailed areas. So just finishing up the green here. We have a video on how to do iron-ons on the website at janefhankins.com if you are curious as to how to iron these on. If you purchase the iron-ons, they come with a link to show how to do it. It's very simple. Originally, these designs were sized to go on something like a pocket, but I have found multiple uses for this design, and just fitting in these face masks is one of them, and they're kind of fun. They're really fun to color. So here I'm going around with a darker green, just adding highlights and a little bit of dimension to the leaves. And I'm using the fine tip to fill in so that I can get all those little spots. And just adding other colors, other shades of color, just add more interest to the design. I just love these little flowers with faces. They're so happy. All right, so there the green is done. Now I'm going to test my pinks because once again, they never match what is on the cap. So I'm going to go with the two peachy colors that I've laid on the mask to start with. And I always double check because I have picked up markers that I thought were the correct color and only to find out that they were not. But just as a precaution, check, check, check. I'm coloring in this one flower, and you'll notice that it looks a little bit mottled, but as the colors dry, they dry more evenly. So now I'm going to go in with a darker shade, and these two markers look very similar in color, but once it dries, you'll see a little more depth in the highlighting. You'll notice that I leave the center just a little bit lighter, and that gives kind of a curve to the petals. So here I am checking the colors again, starting with the lighter pink. And it is a lot brighter on the fabric. That's how they go on, but once they do dry, they are a little bit lighter. Nice bright pink. And you'll notice that I checked that one in 2 spots because it actually matched the color at the top of the list and not the one down below. So I'm going around the edges carefully just to add the dimension to those petals. I wanted to blend those colors just a little bit more, so I went back over it with a lighter pink, and it looks like it fills it in, but it actually just evens the tone out. And you'll see once I complete this mask how it looks in the end. It does really make a difference. I couldn't decide what color I wanted those little flourishes that are coming off of the flower, so I decided to go ahead and make them yellow because I felt like they were part of the center of the flower. And I guess they could have been green, they could have been another shade of the pink. I wasn't quite sure, but I went with the yellow. And then I realized, oops, I didn't shade this flower. And I had to go back in and do that. And you'll notice I switched the tips so that I could get in and do a little more detail. So now I'm going to go for the skin tone, and it does go on a little bit darker again, but it ends up looking wonderful at the end. And you could make these any color skin tone you wanted. The faces could be, since they are the center of the flower, whatever you want it to look like. It could be another shade of the pink. It could be more yellow. It could be more brown. You decide. Okay, almost done. And I realized that there were 2 little dots off to the side. Wasn't too sure what they were, so I decided to color them yellow and add a little bit of green to them. And this is done. And I think it turned out beautifully. Few little more touch-up spots, and we'll go on to the next one. Okay, now on to the sea turtle. And this one I'm going to do the background a little bit differently. This is alcohol ink mixed in with 99% alcohol. And once it is dry, it does stay on the fabric. And I just squirt that all over the background in no particular manner, just kind of want it kind of blotchy looking so that it looks a little underwater-ish, if that's a word. Now getting together my colors for the background and testing them out once again, making sure that I have the actual colors that I want. Got to get rid of the pinks because there won't be any of that in this picture. So just checking out the different markers. The blues were not really what I was looking for, but I always just test them just in case I decide that somewhere along the line that's what I want. I knew that the turtle was going to be mostly yellows and greens, and I decided to start with this kind of a light peach color. And I know that it looks weird once it goes on, but in most coloring, you need to layer your colors in order to get the effect that you want. So here I started layering with this light kind of peach color and filled in, and you'll notice that it covers the blue very well. It actually ends up looking a little more brownish, which if you mix orange and blue, that's what you get. So I'm going to color this in and just do some little highlighting in the center of the squares on his back because I want that color just in the centers. And you'll notice that I don't fill it in like super, super heavy. I just go over it lightly. Okay, now I'm going to start off with my lightest green. And I'm just going around the outsides of the squares. You'll see that I color, it looks like I'm coloring over the whole entire thing, but I'm really just going around the outside edges of the squares, just barely touching a little bit in the center. It's kind of hard to see here because the color doesn't change that much, but again, layering the colors is really important. And I switched because I think this pen is drying out. It's one of the colors that I use most often, and sometimes switching around gives you the option of adding a little more color with that pen. So now going around the edges again with a little bit darker green. I want to make sure that I am not filling in the squares, but I go across the tops and the bottoms of each of those squares, kind of framing them, and you'll notice that the center is staying lighter. And then I kind of round off the corners. And I'm doing this in almost just a dot pattern, just tapping the pen around here and there, not drawing heavy straight lines. And this roundness gives a little bit of shape to those squares, softens them up a little bit. It's kind of fun watching the back of this turtle take shape. And then I'm going to add a little bit of shading to the legs because I didn't want them just tan, but again, that is the undercolor. So I go around the outside edges, add little flecks of color here and there, and can't forget his tail. These turtles are so cute. I have the full t-shirt with them on the front. Just love these little guys. Here, adding a little bit of green to his face. And then I noticed that some of the outlining of the water at the top was kind of coming off right there under my finger. And after I drew some of the blue on, I decided that I needed to take it to the ironing board. So after I color these bubbles in, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, back from the ironing board, and he's all fixed up and it's on there permanently now. Sometimes that happens and you don't notice it until you're coloring, but you can always go back and put like a piece of parchment paper or the paper that the iron-on came off of, just put that back over it and iron it a little bit longer. And it's a real easy fix. So here I'm highlighting with a little bit of the golden yellow, and it just helps bring those greens out. And now I'm going to try this kind of a brown. It ends up being, it looks almost rust on the end of the pen, but it's actually a very brown color. As you can see, I tested it a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the shadowing to his legs, his tail, and then around his head and shell. And I'm just adding like little wisps of color on there. Not any straight, hard edges, just kind of sketching lightly here and there until he looks the way I want him to look. Add a little bit of shading on the outside of the shell. Again, just kind of hitting it here and there. When you think of a tortoise shell, true tortoise shell does have a mottled color to it with browns and clear spots. Now, he's not clear, but a true tortoise shell would have that, or light spots. Now I'm adding just dots around to add more color to his shell. Just dotting it around with the pen in kind of a circular motion, again avoiding the center, and then occasionally putting just like one or two dots in the center. The heavier dots on the outside of the square. So now I've got two different shades of yellow, the greens, and now the browns to make these shells, the shell on this turtle happen. I really like how it turned out. But I start off by lightly adding the dots and then go back and add a few more because I felt like it just wasn't enough. Always start out with less. You can always add more, but you can't take it away once it's on there. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And that way it will help me to make better videos or future videos that you would be interested in watching. I would really appreciate it. Now I'm going to add just little dots on his fins, his legs, because if you ever saw a turtle in person, you'll notice that they kind of have like little scales on them. And so that's what these dots are to represent. And I kind of leave his nose free of dots because I thought that that looked good. Again, testing the blues, hoping that one of them will work. This is kind of a periwinkle blue, which is similar to the alcohol ink that I sprayed on the back. And I just wanted to highlight the waves. I didn't want them to stand out too much. I wanted them just to blend in with the background. And this periwinkle color kind of does that for me. And there you go. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and let me know if you want to see something else in the comments below. Have a great day. Bye.